We spoke about Liz Truss, didn't we, earlier on? Let's listen to what she has been having to say today.
We need to unleash business across Britain. We need people to want to invest in our country. We need businesses to be able to expand, to grow, to create new jobs, to create new ideas. That's why I'm calling upon the Chancellor at the autumn statement to put corporation tax back down to 19%. And frankly, if we can get it lower, the better.
Oh, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in the Hunt household when he gets these messages from Liz Truss. I've got a message for you. I wonder if he goes, yes, thank you, because unless you came along and told me that, I wouldn't have thought of it myself. I wonder how he feels about those interventions. But don't forget, right, Jeremy Hunt, when he was campaigning to be leader last year, he said that he would immediately reduce corporation tax from 19% to 15%. That's what he was campaigning on, one of those tickets. That was one of his primary planks. Of course, it didn't. It went the opposite way, up to 25, I think it is. Do you think it should be reversed, that tax cut?
No, I don't think it. I don't think it should. I think that Liz Truss going on and on about growth is. Everybody wants growth. I mean, it's Rishi Sunak wants growth. The Labour Party wants growth. The Labour Party talks about nothing but growth. I mean, it's one of these things where you just go on and on and on as though nobody else has ever thought about it. I mean, this isn't the way it is. And for Liz Truss, who clearly has a large following in the Conservative Party and also among Conservative MPs, amazingly enough, for her to go to that conference, upset a very, very difficult conference already by saying as though she got anything right last year.
Yeah, but she will be arguing, David, as a lot of people will say, the Conservative Party, one of its core kind of themes, one of its core strengths is supposed to be lower taxes.
Indeed, but you can only have lower tax if you've got lower government expenditure. Otherwise, you have violently unbalanced budgets. And the reason Truss fell wasn't the tiny cut in the top rate of tax or whatever. It was because she decided to incur a huge new welfare cost in paying for people's fuel, which could have been on a scale that actually dwarfed the payments for COVID. That's why her government toppled and the markets reacted against it so violently. You see, I think, again, we need imagine. You're quite right. These are things that have just gone round and round and round in circles. Now, there are countries that have done very extraordinary things. One of them is Ireland, which has deliberately cut its corporation tax to, 5 or 6%, which attracts huge international companies. Now, the whole of the rest of the world, and in particular the EU, has ganged up on them saying, oh, we have to have a minimum charge of corporation tax. Is it 15% or whatever it is? Curiously, our corporation tax is already the lowest, even at its high rate, in the G7. If I were in Hunt's position, I would emulate Ireland. Why should Ireland get the benefit of speaking English when most of the time it spends its time hating England? And we could then attract all those huge companies like Microsoft and whatever would be much happier having their bases in London, and they're only in Dublin because of the tiny rate of corporation tax.
The other reason they're in Dublin, of course, is because they're in the EU. They're in an English-speaking country so that they can get all the Americans and Australians and all the English-speaking, and they're in the EU. That's the other reason.
But equally, we are the IT centre of Europe. I mean, the astonishing creativity. You know, I go back and forwards to King's Cross. You just look at that area. Another place I go to frequently is Cambridge. Yeah. And we're not playing to this strength by sensible fiscal measures.
But I think we need to play, and I agree we need to play to that strength. And I mean, you know, lots and lots of Italians actually came over because their tax system is so chaotic that they'd rather
Ours is now becoming so.
No, they'd rather pay, this is according to my accountant, they'd rather pay higher tax.
Gosh, a socialist with we're having public exposure here.
I am a freelancer. Somebody has
so
to
rich
tell
he
me
has
how
to have an
much I earn.
accountant.
No. But what he said is that these people come over and they're young tech people, and the Italian system is so chaotic. They'd rather pay more tax and actually know what they're doing, and then leave it to somebody else to do.
But can we just
we're right about the techie stuff, but I mean, what worries me is it's ill thought out, and I mean
everything is ill thought out. I mean, particularly
Liz Truss is ill thought out.
She's ill thought out, but I mean, Hans just wants.
Because there's a lot of my viewers that actually will sit there and say that her strategy was the right strategy all along. This growth. You're mocking it.
But what you're saying is
tax
cuts in themselves do not generate growth. This simply seems to me to be a fundamental myth. You would have to rethink the entire tax system. I think there's another thing that we really haven't thought about, which is why are we so obsessed with listening to somebody like Jeremy Hunt? Jeremy Hunt's speech was completely incoherent. On the one hand,
and flat and boring, and said nearly nothing.
Flat and boring, but it's
right?
Incoherent. He increases what? He increases the living wage. That automatically knocks everybody else's wage up because of differentials. So on the one hand, they're calling for pay restraint, and on the other hand, they're doing the thing which is guaranteed to. It is incoherent and ill thought through.
And of course, we should have a simple tax system. And one of the things we should have is that earned income and unearned income should be the same. Instead of having capital gains tax much lower than income.
There's a conversation.
There's another conversation.
Another day. I'm sure that the corp tax in Ireland, I thought it was about 12.5%. I'm sure eagle-eyed viewers will get in touch and let me know either way.